Hello everyone, and welcome to the Mega Magikarp YouTube channel. I'm Magikarp, and today, we're continuing the Dawning festivities with weapon rolls. Today is on Avalanche. This is your requisite solar heavy machine gun to complement the Void 1 commemoration from the raid, and we've got a lot of perks to talk about today, but before we do, a quick reminder. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it would be fantastic if you could hit the subscribe button to make the channel reach its first milestone of 1,000 subs. It'll be the first major stepping stone to making YouTube videos for you guys for the future. Anyway, let's get on with the video, starting with what Avalanche is. A 450 round per minute adaptive frame light machine gun from the Dawning that is solar. You get it from turning in event cookies to different vendors, and they have a chance to give you the gift in return bundle that guarantees one of 3 weapons from the event: Glacioclasm, which I did the roll guide on already if you want to go check that out, Avalanche, and Cold Front. The base stats on Avalanche are a bit of a letdown, putting it lightly. It has less range, stability, and handling on base than Commemoration, but it has 2 main perks going for it. First off, it has solar damage, which is definitely useful for diversifying your loadout, making sure you have a good solar weapon heavy that's useful for, if nothing else, making sure you can more easily adhere to singes and strikes or get bounties done, and secondly, it has ridiculously high aim assist, an AA stat of 90, basically near maximum. So hitting headshots will be done for you with this gun. It's one of the only things really counterbalancing the fact that it has such underwhelming base range and stability. To start off with the roll guide, we'll start off in the far left column with one of the most unusual things on an LMG: optics instead of barrels. This has the potential to be very strong if you get a good optic. My choice for personal favorite is the SPO57 front, a medium zoom optic which gives plus 13 range and plus 4 zoom at the cost of merely minus 3 handling. The reason I rate this one so high is multifaceted. First off, I'm a sucker for enemy highlighting. I love that aspect of this optic. That's mostly individual preference. I don't think I've ever heard anyone disliking that, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. And in the case of LMGs in particular, the increased optical zoom and increased range both mean that your ability to hit targets far out goes up dramatically. And with Avalanche's base 90 aim assist, that means you'll effectively map people with headshots aiming at the torso. But to that end, that begs the question, this gun has long range optics, why don't you like those? When looking at the SRO-47 and the SRO-41 ocular sights, I personally have 2 main gripes. Firstly, their sight picture is very crowded. It's got a lot going on with the optic that doesn't really help with the shooting experience. And secondly, it makes shooting it a bit of a chore. The plus 5 zoom that they give combined with their crowded sight along Avalanche's middling stability stat means even though you get the first couple of shots out really far, I'm personally not a fan of these. If you're a robot, then sure, technically they're going to be better sights than the medium zoom ones on a statistical basis, since your zoom's going to be further out, your aim assist is going to be further out. But from a combination of pragmatic ease of use and statistical viability, I picked the medium zoom optics to be my favorite. The increase of zoom factor on the rifle scopes compared to the medium zoom scopes is very minor, so you're not really edging out too much additional statistical power anyway. And the sight picture of the medium zoom optics are just far more enjoyable for me. SPO28 front is also very good in this regard. It's probably ever so slightly better than the SPO37 for specifically the Crucible due to increasing handling instead of decreasing it, but everywhere else, just due to the highlighting, I'm gonna go with the SPO37. Lastly, we have an array of 4 short zoom optics, and even though these have a multitude of different stats, the 3 of these that don't include the base zoom increase, which are the post sights, SLO10, SLO12, and SLO21, that's really a point of individual discretion on sight preference. The statistical variance on these exact sights don't really matter as much. They're very minor stat differences between them, and what the sights actually look like are honestly a little bit more important to me. And for me personally, I like the sight picture on the SLO12 the most, but if your LMG only has short zoom optics, go with the one you like the most visually. The last optic is the SPO26 front, a little bit of a weird hybrid scope. It's only plus 2 zoom, but it gives plus 6 to range and handling. It's all upside. I'm not a huge fan of the sight picture, but it's not horrible either. And the bonuses it gives aren't bad by any means, so I'm going to skip it if I can, but it's not bad. If I have a choice between only one of the SLO 10, 12, or 21, the one with no base zoom increases, or this, I'm gonna go with this one just because the stats that it gives are too good to pass up, but it's very low on the scale of things of optics that I care for. Next up is the magazine perks. And I want to start out with the PvP section where there's only one really standout choice in ricochet rounds, since it gives plus 9 to stability and plus 5 to range. Stability is the weakest relevant stat on this weapon in PvP, and the large range and zoom it gives won't really matter if you can't control the recoil. So the extra 9 stability will help in that regard, and the extra range is always appreciated on any weapon. For PvE, thankfully, it's a little bit more diversified than just one perk. I want to start with Extended Mag. Brings the reload down to 42, but brings the magazine up to 71 in the mag, which is really close to the maximum for this archetype of 75. There's 4 perks in the next column that circumvent reload necessities for this weapon, although not all of them are good, so your chances of getting a good perk to mitigate the downside of the reload are going to be fairly high. Extended Mag brings the magazine up to 66, also a respectable amount. Armor piercing rounds is cute, adds 5 to range and penetration capabilities for your rounds. This will shred through low tier mobs even more quickly, but I don't really know if that's necessary. Like, sure you can and it's not going to be a bad one, I'll be happy if I manage to get a roll that has this particular one. But I think my favorites here are still the raw magazine increases. I think it's a little bit of a dud. Most of your beefier ads, like knights that don't immediately die, will stagger anyway from repeated hits, so I think this is fairly useless. Normally, I would say Flared Magwell and Light Mag are decent perks here, but with the next column of perks coming up, I think these are second rate here. Light Mag is slightly better. Last year's Alloy Mag, I only really like this perk when on a lightweight frame weapon since it stacks with their intrinsic perk, but aside from that, it's not really worth pursuing on most weapons, and here is no exception. For column 3 and the main perks, one of those ways I was mentioning of circumventing reload I think is really bad is Grave Robber. Kills with melees reload the weapon for you. I just think the perk needs to activate if your weapon is in the back pocket to even consider it, and even then if it did do that, I think I would still prefer other perks. Zen Moment is interesting, increased stability with each hit. If there wasn't another perk that did this better, I'd be intrigued, but as it stands, it just feels like a perk I would throw on the weapon to not actively think while playing the game. Like if I'm doing late night strikes and just bumbling through the game and not really paying too much attention. Kind of like how when you put full auto on a pulse rifle that doesn't need it, it makes the shooting at a boss or something less of a hassle. The visual recoil will be reduced with sustained fire, but it's really just a way to get the weapon to feel smoother and little else. If you're actively looking to make the best use out of the weapon, we can do better than this. Killing Wind is on this weapon column as well. I think all the perks that it has for it in PvP, this is one of 2 main options, since it'll increase your movement, speed, handling, and range. You only get a short amount of ammo with it anyway, so it seems like a solid choice to quickly mow through 2 or 3 unsuspecting enemies. My main PvE exclusive perk is Outlaw, just because even though this weapon has middling stability, the aim assist will make it difficult to not hit headshots, so it feels like this weapon can make easy use of it. My overall favorite perk is Surplus, extra stability, handling, and reload for each charged ability that you have. This perk is quickly rising to be one of the best perks in the game in my eyes. All of the worst aspects of this weapon are mitigated by this perk, and it makes it just so much smoother for it to use. I do have a sleeper perk here, and it's auto-loading holster. We'll come back to that in just a moment. In the column 4 section, I'll weed out one option right out of the gate, and it's opening shot. Why is this here? Like, really? What is this doing? This is a fully automatic heavy weapon. I don't need this. Get out of here. One perk that's explicitly PvP only here is Tap the Trigger. The first few bullets in the magazine are more stable and have higher accuracy. This feels like it was made to pair with Killing Wind. Your Tap the Trigger bonus only applies to the first couple of shots, but Killing Wind would pick up the slack following Tap the Trigger's deactivation, making for a solid all-around weapon for the Crucible environment where you only get about 25 or so bullets per brick. A perk I want to try here is actually Dragonfly. I did a video on it a few months back that I'll throw on the screen somewhere, but the reason I'm intrigued is mostly just as a for fun perk to mess around with in PvE, with areas like the reprised Omnigul Strike or Altar of Sorrows, basically anywhere where massive amounts of mobs appear. With Avalanche's high aim assist, it's not unlikely that you can blast quite a lot of mobs and get a lot of kills with the secondary explosions. It's not my choice for best perk here, but it's certainly cute and I want it just to have it. The most practical 2 perks here are Swashbuckler and Vorpal Weapon, for 2 different uses. Swashbuckler isn't too much worse than Rampage, which can no longer roll on this weapon, and there is something to be said about how cathartic it is to mow through mobs with a massive damage buff like how it offers. Outlaw or Surplus together with Swash can make short work of mass mobs. I mainly take issue with how it can simply just be overkill, like a lot of times you just will one-shot a lot of smaller mobs anyway, and it'll only really help with getting through mobs like Captains or Knights, maybe making them take anywhere from 4 or so bullets less, but overall it's not overly impressive to me. Like, it's fine, it's good, but it's just not the end-all be-all that I think that everybody's making it out to be. It's not really helping shore up the weaknesses of the weapon, which is why I particularly like Vorpal Weapon. Between Boss Spec and Vorpal, you'll get about 23% damage increase against bosses just for shooting at them, which is a little more than 2 Rampage stacks or 3 Swashbuckler stacks, meaning your LMG won't be entirely useless against a boss. It's not going to out DPS a sword or heavy grenade launcher, but it will help in those scenarios where you want to be able to mow down both trash mobs and help in boss encounters. The last perk on here is Unrelenting, which is still bugged as of right now, but when it does work, I really want this one in particular to pair with Auto-Loading Holster. Not because of any particular synergies, but because Auto-Loading Holster and Unrelenting together, especially with Extended Mag, will recreate my old Harrowed Quillem's Terminus from Destiny 1, albeit far less cool looking. That's the main reason for wanting Auto-Loading Holster on this weapon, to be a nostalgic old hat and have my bone-covered gun back from Destiny 1. Auto-Loading and Vorpal is a very solid combination in PvE as well, so I wouldn't sleep on that combination if you get it. For the Masterwork, either range or stability is going to be what I prioritize. Either one is going to be good. I'm personally going to prefer stability. Reload is fine, but not exactly exciting. In the mod slot for PvP, the base recoil direction stat is 70. With the base aim assist stat already being 90, I think the best mod you can put in here is going to be Counterbalance rather than Targeting Adjuster. It makes a recoil direction 85, which means that the firing pattern for the weapon itself will be very straight and vertical. In PvE, it depends on if you get an extended mag perk or not. If you get more ammo and a mag via either Appended Mag or Extended Mag, I'd say go with either Major or Boss Spec, and if you don't get either of those, go with Backup Mag, just to maintain uptime. I think the probable best role for the weapon in PvE in the generic sense is going to be the optic of your choice, in my case any of the medium zoom ones, Extended Mag, which brings your magazine up to 71, Surplus or Outlaw, or Auto-Loading Holster, in that order, alongside Swashbuckler or Vorpal, depending on what you want your weapon to be used for, and either a range or a stability masterwork, and a Major or Boss Spec. For PvP, again, sights of whatever you want, ricochet rounds, surplus or killing wind, and tap the trigger, with Vorpal and, if ever it works again, Unrelenting being viable secondary perks. And there you have it, those are the roles available to Avalanche and what I want on this weapon. Coldfront has finally had its perks figured out, that video will be out soon, and until then, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and ring the bell for notifications on new videos. And if you want to see more, be sure to click on the videos on screen, and if you really want to help me out, consider joining me on my Patreon. Every little bit helps to keep my videos going and keep my lights on. We'll see you on the next video.